and with investment prosperity. Last week we talked about networking. This week we're going to change topics and talk about one of the most powerful financial concepts to grow wealth, and that's compounding interest. All right, so we're going to show the example on one of my favorite websites to go over compound interest, which is on investor.gov. Now, keep in mind, I do not recommend anyone trying to invest and prepare for the retirement if they don't have an emergency fund first. So just make sure you have some money for emergencies that come up, so you're not diving into your savings account and for your future self. And have an emergency fund, however you want to do it, 3 months, 6 months before you start thinking about retirement. So we're going to start out with a $0 initial investment. Next thing we got to determine is our monthly contribution. You don't need to put a ton of money here. For this example, we're going to say $100. If you don't have $100 each month, from your primary income, I highly recommend, trying a gig of some sort. Make $20 a day for 5 days. You have enough to go ahead and invest at least $100 monthly. If for some reason you can't get $100 monthly, then once again, really just focus on your primary income. So for this example, we're going to do $100. Now, length for this scenario, we're going to say you're 30 years old and you're going to retire at the typical age of retirement, which is 65. Hopefully that's still true or less for others. It's a really tough economy right now. But for this example, we're going to say you have 35 years until you want to retire. Step 3 is the interest rate. We're not going to make this up. I'm going to show you guys some data here. And one of the engines that I like to invest in is the S&P 500 index. Just think of it like a basket of the 500 of the largest companies' stock. The companies that are in here like Apple, Microsoft, just large companies that we all know. So one thing I want to show here is the S&P 500 annual returns. So over the last 30 years, the S&P 500 returned an average of 10.7% a year, which is pretty great. So over the last 5 years, the S&P 500 actually returned 16%, and that was even included in 2022. We had a negative 18% return. So 16% with one of those being a negative 18 is pretty great engine or pretty great fund to invest in. But for this example, we're going to just use the average of 10.7. We're not going to mess with the interest rate variance. We can talk about that in another video. Our compound frequency is going to be quarterly. Why? Because most companies distribute their dividends quarterly. So we're just going to keep it aligned with that. That's another topic we can talk about another day. And then lastly, we're going to calculate. So in 35 years, you would have $440,000 plus. So for some people, it's like, man, $440,000, how am I going to live off that from 65, let's say to 90? Let's say you live that long. I completely understand where you're coming from. So if you look here at year 35, you've only invested $42,000. However, your total return, the total principal account is $440,000. So almost 10 times the amount of the total that you put in, which is wild. I want to go back up here and talk about the monthly contribution. This is only $100. Just keep that in mind. Most people make more money as they get older. So let's say for this example, every 5 years, you add an additional $100 each month. So from 0 to 5, you're going to do your 100. From 5 year to 10 year, you're going to do 200, and then so on. And that turns to be about an average of $400 monthly. We're going to put $400 in here, and then we're going to calculate, and then now we're at $1.7 million. So we look at the table real quick. At that point, you've only put in $168,000 over 35 years, but you have a total principal account of 1.7, which is wild. And 1.7 should give you a lot more wiggle room to live off of for 15, 20 years. Now, let's go back up, right? The age for this scenario was 30, but let's say you start at 20, right? Let's say, you get out of school, you start working in a trade, and you have $100 that you can invest monthly, and you start thinking about your retirement a little bit early. So instead of 35 years, we're going to do 45 years. Now, look at this. This is the power of compound interest. So we went from 1.7 for 35 years, right? Maintaining the same amount of that $400, but you just invested for 10 additional years. That will get you a total principal account over $5.1 million. A couple things here. Investing early is key, and then just being consistent is key. Let your money ride. You don't have to put a bunch of money in monthly. If you could just put a small amounts and be consistent about it over years and years, you can see the power of compound interest. So guys, that's all I have. I want to just take a little bit of time, share the concept of compounding interest, And this is something that's doable for everybody. You just got to start early and stay consistent. So once again, guys, 10 with investment prosperity. Hopefully you guys have a great day.